Yesterday night at 10 p.m. Indian Standard Time, the FIA dropped the big news, which is we finally have the proposed updates for the Miami GP, the changes in regulations. They had released a blog post on their website. So, what are these changes? How are they going to impact racing? Are these changes good or positive towards the future of Formula One? Let's go through everything one by one. So I have my laptop open right here and we will be going through all of these proposed changes one by one. But before that, what caught my eye is the title of the blog post. It says refinements to the 2026 FIA regulations agreed by all stakeholders. I don't know what they're trying to imply here. Are the FIA trying to say, hey, see, I have tried to make everybody happy here? Because clearly online the reception of these regulations have been, I don't even call it mixed bag. It is just pure hatred towards FIA, because I saw the Instagram post of this entire changes in the FIA verified account, and all the comments, I think there are only 8 or 7 comments there, and all of them were calling them out for changing the regulations in the first place. And after those few comments got published, the comments were disabled on the post in a few minutes. So I don't think there is a lot of good press about the FIA. In this video, I don't want to have that debate of whether it is good or bad, because if you have been following me, you know my stance on the regulations anyways. But this is to objectively see what are these changes that FIA has proposed, how will they impact, how will it play out during the next few races, and whether this is a good change or will it help the drivers, or will the change be non-noticeable. All of that we will see through this video. The first line to this blog post also mentions a number of refinements to the 2026 FIA Formula One World Champion regulations were agreed today during an online meeting between the FIA, team principals, CEOs of power unit manufacturers, and the FOM, which is Formula One management. So if you thought they took drivers into these meetings, no, they did not. This was purely a management and the team management decision. Drivers were not involved in this meeting, but does that mean that they ignored drivers' opinions? I do believe the teams and the team principals would have represented the drivers and what the drivers felt. But again, let's be very clear, drivers were not in this meeting. The FIA is not just proposing these changes, they were actually shared with the teams and all the stakeholders, and they have already agreed that this is the right way to go. So there is no more debates here. These are all short-term solutions that even the teams have agreed unanimously to get started with from Miami. There are quite a few of these changes that are implemented, that are going to be implemented immediately with effect in Miami, and there are a couple of things that are going to be tested in Miami, and then there are some changes in regulations specific to wet weather conditions that we cannot say for sure unless we actually have a wet race. So other than that, everything else is going to be in effect from Miami. The FIA blog post also summarizes the changes in 4 subsections, and I think we should also follow the same section. So let's get straight down to it. What are the changes that FIA has proposed for qualifying? They've also added a tag to every section. Qualifying, all of these changes are to promote performance. The first big change is the maximum recharge permitted for a car in a lap has been reduced from 8 mj to 7 mj. So the full battery capacity of a Formula One car in under this year's regulation is 4 megajoules, which means in a given lap, a car can go from 0 to full recharge, depleted back to 0, and then fully recharge again twice in a single lap. That means it's 4 plus 4, 8 megajoules, right? So that is usually how this permitted recharge is calculated, and that has been brought down from 8 megajoules to 7 megajoules. So how does this impact qualifying? On paper, reducing it from 8 megajoules to 7 megajoules without physically reducing the battery, you are effectively reducing the capacity of charge that can be held by a battery, because you are not recharging your batteries to hit 8 mj but to 7 mj. You are spending a little less time recharging in a lap. FIA say in the blog post that this is aimed at reducing excessive harvesting. That I agree, and encouraging more consistent flat out driving. I am not sure. The problem was never that the drivers were not doing flat out driving. They were doing flat out driving, but the energy from their engine, which is the ICE internal combustion engine was going into other modes of recharging like super clipping, right? They also mentioned that the super clipping duration is reduced approximately 2 to 4 seconds per lap. The idea here is, remember we saw a drop in speed whenever the drivers were driving flat out in qualifying, especially in those long straights, and then we were saying, oh, it was very depressing to see the drop in power. I think this is to reduce exactly that. Before you jump into and say like, oh, this makes no difference because in Japan also this was at 7 mj, I think that is not what FIA means. They are reducing the overall for every track from 8 to 7. So in specific tracks it will be reduced even further. That's my assumption here, but let's double check that. So if you look at point 3, that becomes a little more clearer. There are certain circuits that are picked up as alternate low energy circuits. Basically in these circuits the top peak recharge is reduced, and it used to be from 8 mj to 7 mj. Now what FIA is saying is now the 7 mj is the standard, and in these select circuits it will be even lower, and they have also increased those races from 8 to 12. Basically it used to be 8 races where this lower energy limit was applied, and now it will be applied to 12 races. If these changes were there before, I think Japan would be much less than 7 mj, but again, I don't think FIA have clarified this any further, so we'll have to wait and see. Let's move on to the next big update, which is the peak super clipping has been increased to 350 kilowatts from 250 kilowatts. I genuinely believe that this is a good move. Now, the way to explain it is between two charging bricks, right? There is a charging brick that is 20 watts, and then there is another 60 watt or 100 watt charger, right? It is basically the difference between normal charging and fast charging for your cell phones. Higher watts give you a faster recharge speed. So when you increase the peak super clipping from 250 to 350, it means your batteries charge much faster, which means you are going to effectively spend a lot less time thinking about how much longer do I have to super clip to gain my battery. It effectively reduces that time. And looks like the reason for this change also is exactly that. FIA have mentioned this will further reduce the time spent recharging and reduce the driver workload on energy management. And this also applies to race conditions as well. So I think this is a good move on paper. It sounds like a change in the right direction, but again, this has to be tested. We will get to see this play out at Miami. So these are the two main changes in qualifying. Now let's move on to our next section, which is race changes. The first proposed change is the capping of the maximum power output available during boost mode. It is capped at plus 150 kilowatts. What does that mean? It means when you hit the boost mode button, you will not get anything more than 150 kilowatts. I think this is something we'll all understand much better as the season progresses, but basically this rule is to limit the huge power differences between two cars, especially when one is harvesting and the other one is deploying. This is to avoid any sudden bursts of power. A corollary to this change, which is MG UK's peak power deployment, has been kept at 350 kilowatts only at very specific parts of the track. Basically, as per the comments, it will be when you exit a corner and when it is in overtaking zones during the straights. I think this is where 350 kilowatts can be deployed. Everywhere else it is going to be 250 kilowatts only. Again, this is to prevent big changes or big differences between speeds, especially in every other slower parts of the track. I genuinely believe these two changes are directly the result of Ollie Bearman's crash. The root cause of that crash was that one car was harvesting and the other car was deploying, and the speed difference was massive, and it happened at a very weird point of the track where there was going to be a lot of heavy braking into a corner. Does this fix anything? Basically, I do believe the speed difference between two cars is taken care of in rest of the tracks, but it also, by keeping it at 350 kilowatts at other parts of the track, you still don't miss out on those yo-yo racing overtakes, which again is very debatable. It is artificial and all of that. But then, yes, I don't think they have done or overcooked here, where they've removed the entire element of the electrical power giving the advantage. They have kept it at some parts of the track and they've removed it from parts of the track where they feel like it is going to be difficult. Now, the point that we need to double down and see is, based on every racetrack, which are the parts of the racetrack where it is going to be at 350 kilowatts and which are the parts where it's going to be at 250 kilowatts. I think FIA will now update every track's layout and giving us, like just like how we used to have sectors and DRS zones. I think they will give us zones where we can have 350 kilowatts and the rest of the track it would be 250 kilowatts. Now moving on to the third section, which is about race starts, and here I do believe there are some really interesting and unique changes to the rules that have come in. So there is a new system being developed. It is called the low power start detection system. It is going to be implemented and tested out in Miami, and I think it will be refined in the further races. But this is to prevent all of those starts where one car was stationary and the cars behind tried to avoid crashing into the car ahead by weaving, right? This is to prevent that one specific safety incident. So how does this system work? Basically, the minute at a race start, the clutch is released for the car to accelerate. When the driver releases the clutch, this system measures the acceleration. If the acceleration is abnormally low, basically this system triggers the MGUK and the batteries to give some minimum power to bring the acceleration to a certain agreeable minimum limit so that the car is not left stationary at the race start. On paper, this system, yes, definitely makes the race starts a lot more safer, but it does come across as fiddling with the rules even more to make something really work. But again, this is a new innovation that I think in general can prove wonderful, not just in Formula One, but in any other races where electrical power is involved, where if in a start somebody bottles it, there is a huge pileup or a risk of a pileup that can happen from the drivers trying to accelerate in their best from behind. So yes, this is a very nice innovation, but it does make it feel as if, like, FIA had fiddled with the whole racing aspect, racing element in the race start so much that we've come up with an entirely new system. But again, I do see the point of this innovation and I hope we get to test it out in Miami. And I also think that this system will keep getting refined so that it doesn't feel very micromanagey and fiddly. I want the system to do its job and just disappear. We shouldn't have to talk about the system every race. There is also going to be added blinking lights on the rear and on the sides for the cars behind to know that there is a car that is going through this problem. So yeah, that's another added safety measure. And the last section is for wet weather. The first change is the tire blanket temperature for intermediate tires have been increased. Yes, now the tires have gotten shorter and thinner, right? So because of that, the grip had always gotten down. And now that wet weather tires, if they become cold, especially inters, if they become cold, they lose a lot of grip. So tire blanket temperatures increasing definitely gives a little more stability to the car, little more grip, and definitely gives a little more confidence to the drivers to drive in inters and during a wet race. Maximum ERS deployment, basically energy that is recovered and then deployed, all of this has been reduced. Obviously, yes, this is a good thing because you do not want any power surges and electrical energy suddenly boosting the speed of the car and resulting in crashes and all of that. So all of this has been greatly reduced, looks like, and this will improve the torque and control of the car, which is all good things for a wet race, definitely. FIA have not mentioned any numbers directly mentioning, okay, this is the amount that will be limited or anything. Again, wet races are usually rare, so we'll have to wait for the next wet weather condition race for us to see how these changes make Formula One any different. And the last point is that rear lights and the cues from the rear light during a wet race has been simplified and made more consistent so that the drivers behind have better visual cues, especially when the visibility is poor. So that is a good thing, not necessarily a change because of the regulations, but it is a welcome change for wet weathers anyways. The FIA World Motorsport Council still have to go through all of these proposed changes and give a final vote, but chances are that's going to happen and we will get to see all of these implemented in the Miami GP, with the exception of the race start procedure that will be tested and then refined further for the rest of the season. now that we've discussed all of these proposed changes, there is a trend that I see online that I really do want to address, which is to hate on FIA, which is to hate on all of these regulations and decisions that are made, which is fine. You are free to have your own opinion. Everybody is entitled to their opinion. I do not personally like certain parts of what Formula One has become in 2026. That is all to say that sometimes as fans we need to have an open mind, right? If you think people who are sitting there in the FIA and people who are sitting in all of these CEO positions in all of these racing teams, if you think that they don't care about racing and if you think they are all idiots, then I think there is fundamentally something wrong in our way of thinking. Nobody sitting over there are idiots. They are all experienced folks. They are all in it for a lot of reasons. There could be financial reasons, there could be financial motivations, there could be motivations of personal competitiveness. All of that is there, definitely, for sure. I think instead of just criticizing the FIA without any valid basis of reasoning, that's what gets to me. See, if you say this rule specifically does not work, I am a lot more happy to understand that person's perspective, and in most cases I'll probably agree with them. But even in my own comment section, I see a lot of these things where, oh, this is no longer the pinnacle of motor racing. I'm sorry, how is this not the pinnacle of motor racing? F1 cars are still the fastest cars. F1 cars still have the most highest change in acceleration and in speed, and in fact there is no other race like Formula One at the moment in this world, right? How is this not the pinnacle of motorsport? Formula One will never be about just the fans. Yes, the fans can enjoy the racing a certain way, but for a sport of this magnitude, with so many stakeholders, companies whose entire future depends on Formula One, companies who have come thinking that this is a marketing avenue for them to invest in, and then there is the drivers. All of them are different stakeholders, right? We as fans are just one of the stakeholders. Keeping the fans happy, forget the fans, keeping the drivers happy is also not the point of the FIA and the Formula One management. When we try to have an open mind and learn the nitty-gritties of the sport, you can probably understand and sympathize with the FIA on certain changes in the regulations that they have made. Now, everybody criticizes the introduction of electrical power in the 2026 regulations. And this is not new. Electrical power was there all the while. There was a reason why it's called the turbo hybrid era. Hybrid meaning some of the power came from MGU-H and MGU-K. It's just that the percentage of power moved higher. Now, why did they have to make this change? Formula One has existential threats because of engine manufacturers. F1 can have the best viewers, it can have the most number of sponsorships, but if the teams decided that it is a waste of money to invest in this sport because it does not translate into technology that can be implemented in their road cars, obviously the sport is going to die because the engine manufacturers are going to pull out. Why do you think Mercedes fought so hard to get this 50-50 distribution in the first place? Because this technology, when it evolves, helps them sell their road cars. Formula One is not only going to push the boundaries of racing, but it is also going to push the boundaries of technology. You know why Honda exited Formula One in the first place and then came back with Aston? It's because Honda saw that investing in powered trains made no sense till the electrical energy and the new regulations came in. The sport has to make sense for automobile manufacturers and OEM parts manufacturers, etc., because they are pouring in millions in investment for basically nothing. The prize money that they get out of winning is actually nothing compared to what they will eventually earn through marketing and through car sales and through getting more clients and customers. Once you start understanding how the sport works, I think you can empathize with FIA for making certain decisions. Am I defending FIA? In a way, yes, but I also have verbally and vocally highlighted things that I do not like in the Formula One regulations. But mindlessly criticizing and saying that F1 is no longer a sport anymore. It has become all about battery management. No, it has not become all about battery management. It's just that we are talking a lot about battery management. It's still difficult to drive that car on a track. And the FIA is now bringing in changes to get these rules a little more concrete. And if you think, oh, Max Verstappen said this, he doesn't like this regulations, he said it in 2023. The point of the regulations and the changes is not to listen to drivers. There is a reason why drivers were not there in the meeting. Drivers come and go, right? If Max Verstappen does not like racing in battery powered engines, he is more than free to go race. I'm a huge Max Verstappen fan, and even I am telling you this, that is not how the sport works. To push the sport ahead, for the future of the sport to be secure, you need to go in the direction where the rest of the automobile trend is going on. You as an individual living in India might have already seen the number of electric cars that have come onto the road, right? The reason is that is the new trend. You don't have to consider political involvement here about like whether it is safe for the environment, all of that. You don't even have to like electric cars to acknowledge the fact that electric cars have come here to stay. If Formula One as a sport does not push the boundaries of what automobile engineering is happening in real life, all of these companies will lose interest in investing in Formula One. They will always find better places to invest. That is why for the existential threat of the sport, we have to look at electrical power. Yes, there could have been better ways to implement electricity. Maybe 50-50 implementation can be done through other innovative ways of deployment. All of that is open for debate. But if you are criticizing FIA for bringing in electricity, I think that's a little immature in my opinion. You need to be a little more open-minded. You don't have to agree with me, you don't have to agree with the FIA, but do not ruin it for people who actually enjoy the sport. I, as a person who is in this ecosystem trying to build a community of folks who understand the sport better, want to give both sides of the argument in an unbiased way where, yes, I don't want to be all critical of the FIA. I want to understand the perspectives behind it, and I do think that the direction in which Formula One going makes sense to me. It's just that the implementation of certain rules and regulations are teething problems in this new generation of Formula One. But I think these rules are here to stay. I'm always up for a debate as long as it is civil and it is a mutual transfer of information, facts and understanding and even opinions. But if somebody is just commenting for the sake of commenting, just to join the hate train or the hype train, I think we as a Formula One community should do much better. Welcome changes from the FIA, but we will have to wait till Miami to see if these changes are any good. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. As usual, like, share, subscribe. Please leave your comments down below, and I will see you in the next video.